You knew Switzerland would be beautiful. That was never in doubt. But as your plane begins its descent, and the first glimpses of snow-dusted peaks and crystal-clear lakes appear beneath you, you feel something shift. This isn't just beauty. It's breathtaking. Then, almost as quickly, reality hits. Switzerland is expensive. You'd heard the warnings, but seeing a bottle of water for 5 francs in the airport suddenly makes it real. Still, you smile. You didn't come here to count pennies. You came for the experience of a lifetime. But you're smart. You planned. You booked accommodation with a kitchenette, so you can cook at least a few meals. You even packed a slim power adapter that works with the Swiss Type J outlets, thanks to a tip you read online. Your phone's already on airplane mode. You bought a data plan that includes Switzerland, since you remembered it's not part of the EU, and roaming fees can sneak up on you. Zurich, Geneva, Basel. You had a choice of international airports. You picked based on your route, knowing it makes sense to fly into one city and out of another. That way, you won't have to loop back, saving both time and money. Efficiency. How very Swiss. You start noticing things right away. Everything is clean, unreasonably clean, and quiet. Trains glide in on time. People move deliberately. There's no chaos. It's as if the whole country is designed to run like a perfectly tuned watch. But there's more. There's color. In the money, in the buildings, in the way the sky stretches wider here. There's warmth, too, once you look for it. A smile from a barista, the smell of fresh bread outside a bakery, a perfectly timed greeting. Grüezi. You're just getting started, but already, you know, Switzerland is not going to be an ordinary trip. It's going to be something slower, sharper, cleaner, a place where every detail matters. And your journey, like everything else here, will unfold with calm precision. You take a deep breath, adjust your backpack, and step out of the terminal. Let the Swiss adventure begin. You always pictured Switzerland as snow-capped peaks and Christmas card villages. And yes, winter is stunning. But as you start planning your route, you realize that Switzerland changes dramatically with the seasons, and each one offers something completely different. Winter is classic. Ski towns like Zermatt and St. Moritz sparkle under blankets of snow. Christmas markets glow in Zurich and Lucerne. You can sip mulled wine by a fire after a day on the slopes, or riding the Glacier Express past icy valleys. But with that charm comes cost. Winter is high season, and prices, for accommodation, lift passes, even hot chocolate, climb as quickly as the altitude. Then there's spring, quieter and a little cooler. You'll see snow lingering on the mountains, while wildflowers bloom in the valleys. Crowds haven't arrived yet. You imagine yourself walking through Alpine meadows in April, hearing cowbells echo in the distance. It's not as dramatic as summer or winter, but it's peaceful, fresh, and perfect for off-the-beaten-path travelers. Summer, though, that's when Switzerland opens up completely. The mountains are alive, literally. Hiking trails are accessible. Lakes turn turquoise. Towns like Lauterbrunnen, Interlaken, and Montreux become hubs for adventure, music, and lakeside lounging. You picture yourself swimming in Lake Geneva or picnicking near waterfalls. Trains run more frequently. It's busy, yes, but it feels like celebration. And then there's autumn, which feels like Switzerland's best-kept secret. Fewer tourists, golden forests, wine harvests in the Vaud and Valais, crisp air and cozy chalets. You can ride mountain trains without crowds and still see the peaks, but with a little more breathing room. September and early October might just be your sweet spot. You realize quickly. There's no bad time to visit Switzerland, only different kinds of good. The trick is to match the season with your priorities: skiing or hiking, peace or festivals, cool breezes or snowy thrills. Whatever you choose, Switzerland won't disappoint. Because here, the seasons don't just change the weather. They reshape the entire experience. And that's part of the magic. It doesn't take long to notice that Switzerland moves differently, not just on its trains but in its people, its pace, its quiet expectations. It's not flashy or loud. It's measured, polite, and above all, precise. You start with greetings. It's not hi or hey here. It's grüezi in the German-speaking regions, bonjour in the French parts, and buongiorno if you're down in Ticino. It's not just language, it's respect. You learn to say it when entering shops, cafes, even elevators. Failing to greet someone in Switzerland? That's considered rude. And then there's punctuality. In Switzerland, early is on time, and on time is expected. If a train is due at 10:07, it will leave at 10:07, not 10:06, not 10:08. You start to mirror the same discipline, arriving at restaurants exactly when you booked, showing up for tours 5 minutes early, and watching as everything around you runs like, well, a Swiss watch. You begin to notice other unspoken codes too. Don't be loud in public spaces, especially on trains. Talking on speakerphone, eating strong-smelling food, all frowned upon. People don't stare, but you'll feel it. That subtle disapproval that says, this is not how we do things here. And yet, this isn't a cold country. It's just reserved. And once you adapt, you begin to understand the charm. Everything is thoughtful, clean, considerate. Even the smallest mountain towns seem cared for. You walk through cobbled lanes where the trash bins are never overflowing, where the public restrooms are spotless, where everything from signage to shop fronts feels curated with pride. You also notice how multilingual Switzerland really is. One minute, you're ordering a pastry in German. The next, you're reading road signs in French, then Italian, then Romansh. You don't need to speak all four, but knowing a few phrases in the local language, that earns real smiles. And perhaps the most surprising part? The lack of chaos. There's no honking, no pushing, no last-minute scrambles. People wait their turn. Drivers stop for pedestrians. Buses don't weave or shout. It's not just about rules. It's about mutual respect. By now, you're adjusting. You walk a little slower, you speak a little softer, and you realize, in Switzerland, you don't need to rush to be on time. You just need to be present. In most countries, transportation is a means to an end. But in Switzerland, getting around is part of the experience. From the moment you step into a Swiss train station, you realize something. You don't need a car here. Trains glide in on time, connections are seamless, and everything from Alpine villages to lakeside towns is reachable by public transport. It's not just efficient, it's effortless. You learn quickly about the Swiss travel pass, your golden ticket to almost everything. Unlimited travel across trains, buses, boats, and even some mountain cableways. Free entry to over 500 museums. It's not cheap, but the value is incredible, especially if you're planning to hop from city to mountain to lake and back again. For slower trips or fewer travel days, you discover half-fare cards, regional passes, and even discounted Savor Day passes if you book in advance. Everything runs on the SBB system, Switzerland's national rail, and their app becomes your best friend. Timetables, connections, ticket options, and live updates, all in your pocket, all in English. And then come the Scenic trains. Not just transportation, but cinematic experiences. You dream about the Glacier Express, an 8-hour journey from Zermatt to St. Moritz, through 291 bridges, 91 tunnels, and landscapes so stunning you forget to blink. There's the Bernina Express, climbing to glacial heights on red rail cars that look like toys. Or the Golden Pass line, with panoramic windows framing vineyards, lakes, and storybook villages. Even local trains surprise you. One moment you're in a modern station, the next you're winding along a turquoise lake with cows grazing outside your window. Everything feels smooth, quiet, designed for beauty. And don't forget the boats. Yes, boats, which are part of the transport system. You imagine yourself gliding across Lake Lucerne, mist rising off the water, mountains reflecting in the stillness. And it's not a tour, it's just the ferry. You realize something. In Switzerland, you're never just going somewhere. You're being carried gracefully, precisely, through a landscape that never stops giving. And every connection, every cable car, every Alpine curve, it's another page in your story. As your itinerary begins to take shape, you start thinking about where you'll sleep. And in Switzerland, accommodation isn't just a place to crash. It's part of the experience. In the cities, Zurich, Geneva, Lucerne, you'll find the familiar, sleek hotels, stylish boutiques, and global brands. But even here, there's a Swiss touch. Clean lines, quiet service, and mountain views just beyond the rooftops. You quickly learn that nothing here is loud, not even luxury. But venture beyond the cities, and the options become a little more magical. You find Gasthauser and charming chalets in Alpine villages, wooden balconies dripping with flowers, church bells in the morning, a homemade breakfast of local cheese, fresh bread, and apricot jam. Maybe a friendly owner who gives you trail tips over coffee. These places may be modest, but they're deeply authentic. And then there are the wellness hotels, places designed for rest. You imagine soaking in a thermal spa in Bad Ragaz, or lounging on a terrace in Leukerbad with a view of snow-dusted peaks. The spa culture here isn't about indulgence. It's about balance, something the Swiss seem to understand better than most. By a lake? You're spoiled for choice. Picture waking up in a hotel in Wegas, the morning light shimmering off Lake Lucerne, or sipping wine on a terrace above Lake Geneva, where the French Alps glow pink at sunset. It feels like something out of a painting, and yet it's real. And if you're budget conscious, don't worry. Swiss youth hostels are clean, organized, and often located in stunning spots. You might share a room, but you won't sacrifice scenery or comfort. Plus, there are mountain huts, called Berghütten, where hikers sleep high in the Alps. No frills, just fresh air, hearty meals, and starlight. You learn one golden rule: book early, especially in high season or smaller towns. With tourism so well managed, the best places fill quickly. But even last minute, you rarely go wrong, because the standard here is just that high. And by now, you realize something deeper. In Switzerland, your room isn't just where the day ends, it's where the next one quietly, beautifully begins. You didn't come to Switzerland just for the food, but now you're wondering why not. Because every bite here tells a story. It starts with the obvious: cheese. Not just a wedge on a plate, but entire meals built around it. You try fondue first. Melted Gruyere and Emmental served in a bubbling pot, eaten slowly with chunks of bread and maybe a side of pickles. It's not just dinner, it's ritual. Then comes raclette, where a wheel of cheese is heated and scraped onto potatoes, onions, and cured meats. You eat it in a mountain hut and suddenly understand why the Swiss smile so quietly. They're holding on to secrets like this. And then there's the chocolate, rich, velvety, unapologetically indulgent. You step into a shop and it's like entering a cathedral of sweetness, truffles in gold foil. Hand-poured bars. You try one square of dark chocolate with Alpine herbs, and it lingers on your tongue like a memory. But Switzerland's food isn't all cheese and sweets. You discover rösti, a golden potato dish that started as a farmer's breakfast and now shows up everywhere. Crisp on the outside, soft on the inside, topped with eggs or bacon or melted cheese. It's comfort food, mountain style. And then there's Zürcher Geschnetzeltes, thin strips of veal in a creamy mushroom sauce, usually served with rösti. You order it in a cozy wood-paneled restaurant and immediately regret ever underestimating Swiss cuisine. You also notice how meals move slowly. People linger. Tables aren't turned. Waiters don't rush you. Eating is not a task. It's part of the day's rhythm. You stop checking your phone. You sip your wine. You talk. You listen. You stay. Even at grocery stores, you find quality. A crusty roll, local cheese, and a bar of chocolate become your perfect hiking lunch, eaten on a rock beside a waterfall. You learn quickly. Tap water is free and pure, and tipping isn't expected like in other countries. A 5 to 10% tip for great service is enough, but never required. With every meal, you're tasting more than food. You're tasting tradition, terrain, and time. And you realize that in Switzerland, the best meals aren't about fancy flavors. They're about where you are when you take the first bite. You've traveled a lot. You've learned to say hello in multiple languages. But here in Switzerland, you discover something different. A country with 4 national languages, countless dialects, and one universal rule: be respectful. At first, it's a little overwhelming. In Zurich, everything's in German, but not the German you studied. It's Swiss German, Schweizerdeutsch, filled with different words, pronunciations, even sentence structures. You quickly learn most Swiss people understand standard German, but they'll speak to each other in dialect. And that's okay. You don't need to understand everything. Just trying earns you smiles. In Geneva, signs shift to French. Menus, greetings, train announcements. It's like stepping into a new country. You say bonjour instead of gruezi. Suddenly, merci replaces danke. In Lugano, near the Italian border, the language flips again to Italian, with all its warmth and rhythm. And then there's Romancher, spoken by a small community in the southeast. You may not hear it often, but its presence is proudly protected. It's a reminder that Switzerland isn't a melting pot. It's a mosaic. You don't need to be fluent, but a few words in the local language. Hello, thank you, please. Go a long way. People here appreciate the effort. Even more than that, they appreciate your quietness. Because Swiss culture isn't about showmanship. It's about order, privacy, and calm. You don't talk loudly on the train. You don't cut in line. You don't assume the rules are optional. They're not. And yet, it never feels cold. The smiles may be small, but they're sincere. The service may be efficient, but it's thoughtful. People hold doors. They greet you when entering a room. They thank the bus driver when they get off. You begin to mirror it. You say excuse me when walking through a crowd. You lower your voice in public. You stand to the right on the escalator and leave space on the sidewalk. It's subtle, but powerful. And somewhere between your third language switch and your first unsolicited merci vielmal, you realize you're not just learning about Switzerland. You're becoming part of its rhythm. And that rhythm? It's made of respect, kindness, and just enough silence to let the mountains speak. You didn't come to Switzerland for festivals. You came for mountains, lakes, and maybe a little chocolate. But now, walking through a cobbled town square lit by lanterns with music in the air and the scent of roasted almonds wafting around you, you're beginning to see a new side of the country. Because when Switzerland celebrates, it does so with precision, tradition, and surprising joy. You learn that Swiss holidays are often tied to seasons, religion, or centuries-old customs. Christmas, of course, is magical. In December, the country transforms into a snow globe. Wooden stalls appear overnight, towns glow with fairy lights, and mugs of glühwein warm frozen fingers. You stroll through a Christmas market in Lucerne or Bern and suddenly feel like a child again. Then there's Sechselauten in Zurich, a spring festival where locals gather to burn a giant snowman, the Boog, to predict the weather. It sounds strange, but feels wildly fun, especially as fireworks explode over the river and thousands cheer. In the summer, you stumble upon open-air music festivals, yodeling competitions, or Alpabfahrt, the traditional descent of cows from the mountains, complete with floral crowns, cowbells, and dancing. You're not sure what's more surreal, the beautifully decorated animals, or the genuine pride in every villager's face. And it's not just the big events. Swiss National Day, on August 1st, is quietly patriotic. You hear cowbells in the distance, see fireworks in lakeside towns, and join locals for barbecues under mountain skies. What's refreshing? These celebrations don't feel commercial. They feel community-based, rooted in place and history. You're not just watching, you're part of it. Even ordinary Sundays have their own rhythm. Almost everything closes. Shops, supermarkets, even many restaurants. At first, it's inconvenient. Then you realize, this is sacred space, a pause in the week to hike, picnic, rest, or simply be. It's not just tradition, it's balance. And perhaps that's the deeper lesson. In Switzerland, life isn't rushed. Holidays aren't about excess. They're about presence, about noticing, participating, and appreciating. You came for the mountains. But now, in the glow of festival lights and the silence of a Sunday hike, you realize Switzerland celebrates softly, but meaningfully. And that's exactly how it leaves its mark. By now, you're feeling confident. You've mastered the trains, tasted the cheese, picked up a few local words. But just as you're starting to blend in, you realize, even in Switzerland, it's easy to make simple mistakes, and the Swiss notice everything. The first and most common misstep: forgetting to buy or validate a train ticket. In some countries, you can hop on and pay later. Not here. Swiss transport runs on trust and strict rules. If you board without a ticket, or forget to validate it when required, Expect a hefty fine and no sympathy. You make it a habit. Ticket first, platform second. Another mistake? Assuming everything is open on Sundays. It's not. Supermarkets, stores, and even restaurants may close. You learn to plan ahead. Buy your groceries on Saturday, book Sunday meals in advance, or prepare for a picnic. Once you stop fighting it, you realize that forced pause is kind of wonderful. You also learn to respect quiet hours, not just at night, but in public spaces. Loud phone calls on trains? No. Playing music in public? Definitely not. Even dragging your suitcase across a cobbled street early in the morning can draw looks. It's not about judgment, it's about consideration. Then there's the temptation to cut corners on costs. Switzerland is expensive. Yes. But skipping out on experiences because they seem pricey can backfire. Some mountain trains, lake cruises, or scenic passes may feel like a splurge, but once you're there, watching the Alps rise around you or gliding across turquoise water, you understand. You didn't pay for transportation. You paid for awe. Other mistakes are subtler. Tipping too much, a 5 to 10% roundup is fine. Not bringing a reusable water bottle. The tap water here is cleaner than most bottled water. Ignoring weather forecasts in the mountains. Conditions change fast. Always be prepared. Wearing shoes not suited for walking. Those cobblestones and trails aren't kind to flip-flops. And perhaps the biggest mistake? Trying to rush through Switzerland like it's a checklist. You realize the real magic isn't in how much you see, it's in how deeply you experience it. And that means slowing down, paying attention, and letting the country show you how it wants to be seen. You didn't expect it to feel this hard to leave. As your train pulls out of your final station, you glance out the window one last time. The lake shimmering below, the peaks watching in silence. Everything feels calm. Still. Perfectly Swiss. You think back to when you arrived, a little nervous about the costs, unsure of the customs, ready to tick off the highlights. Now you're leaving with something entirely different. Not just memories, but a feeling. A rhythm. You remember the way the trains always arrived on time. The way people waited quietly at the platform. The way water fountains poured clean, glacier-fed streams into your bottle for free. The way nature wasn't something to visit, but something that surrounded and guided daily life. You remember Sundays, not for what you did, but for what you didn't. No errands, no pressure. Just a slow walk, a quiet meal, maybe a view. You remember the stillness in the mountains, the honesty of a self-service farm stand, the way every town, no matter how small, was tidy, proud, cared for. You remember the meals that stretched longer than expected, the silence of strangers that somehow felt comforting, the waiter who spoke 4 languages fluently and used them all within 5 minutes. The kindness in small moments, precise, never overdone, always genuine. You didn't come here for lessons, but you're leaving with them. You've learned that beauty doesn't need to be loud, that efficiency and grace can coexist, that you don't always need more, just better. You feel changed, not by something dramatic, but by something quiet. You've absorbed a new kind of presence, the kind that sees details, moves deliberately, and makes space for stillness. As your plane takes off, you watch the mountains shrink into clouds, and you know, this isn't goodbye. Because Switzerland doesn't just stay in your camera roll or your suitcase. It stays in how you walk, how you pause, how you breathe, and most of all, in how you carry the quiet forward.